we're gonna get started here. Oh, Lindsay just joined us. So fun. So many. You are popular, Sarah.
What can I say? No. They
They
want to hear the details,
want to hear the
and they're here
juice.
for you because you're the magic maker. So
Yeah.
let's see.
Oh, all right, friends. Um, if this is your first call with me, you might not know this, but I absolutely have to start with some intro music every time we get this thing rocking. It helps loosen us up. It helps get us ready. And Sarah is a great dancer. So why don't we get that kicked off? Oh yeah. Oh, here it comes. Come on, Ali. I see you, baby. Woo! Oh, I tried the sprinkler. I don't know if I hit it. I don't know if I got that one. Good moves, Ali. Good to see you, man. Friends, we are here with Sarah Aviram, and she's a brilliant, brilliant speaker, amazing leadership coach. And Sarah and I met, gosh, what has it been, like 4 years now or something?
Yeah, yeah.
It's been a minute. And you had landed your TEDx and here in Houston and wanted some coaching to get the talk ready to go, to deliver it, to knock it out of the park. And did you ever? You crushed it. I mean, it was so, so good. And it got noticed. It went from a TEDx editor's pick right out of the gate, which means that you're featured on the front page of the YouTube channel. And then you get like, I don't know, like 20, 30,000 views in that day that they post it. And then it was doing its thing. It was moving. You were great at sharing it. And then later, what was it like? Maybe 9 months later? 9 months later, then Ted reaches out and says, "Hey, we're going to make this a full-blown TED Talk. It's going to be the TED Talk of the day, and it's going to go on our podcast." And then, of course, from there, when they take over the marketing, hundreds of thousands of views later, here you are, almost 900,000 views to date. Incredible. Round of applause for Sarah Abraham, everybody. All right, friends. Again, if you don't know me, I'm Cesar Cervantes. I'm a communication coach, and I'm the founder of Top Talks, and where we help people land and deliver TEDx talks and keynote speeches. And Sarah is just an incredible alum of one of my coaching clients, and so, so glad to have you here today. Sarah, what did I miss? Tell us a little bit more about you before we launch into kind of your journey on all of this.
Ooh, thank you for the kind intro, Caesar. I love that. What else can people know about me? My career was in HR, corporate HR, specifically talent development, learning and development. And I did a kind of crazy thing in 2019. I pitched this wild idea to the CEO of my company at the time that, well, I was researching future of work trends, and he wanted to know what my big ideas would be for 2019. And I said, all the research is showing the future of work as remote. Now, mind you, this is pre-pandemic, right? But that's where the trends were going, and obviously we could never have predicted what happened. But I pitched this wild idea to him that I should be the guinea pig for the world of remote work. And I should do my job remotely in 2019. And not just from home, but from 12 countries in 12 months. And he kind of looked at me like I'd lost my mind and maybe my job. Um, but shockingly, he said yes. And before either of us could change our minds, I ran out of there and sold my furniture and hopped on a flight to Peru.
Wow.
So that's where the story begins and what my TED Talk is inspired by that wild year.
Well, we have to pause there because first of all, like most of us wouldn't even have it in us to pitch that. Like I remember being in a corporate job back in the day and I was in higher education and the idea that you could even like go to somebody like and make this a thing, like most of us would have gone like I would have been laughed out of the office, right? And
Yeah.
but something as you said that, I remember Tim Ferriss's book, The 4 Hour Work Week. And is that what it is? 4 Hour Work
Yeah,
Week? I
4 hour work
think.
week. Yeah.
Yeah. And in it, he's like, you could ask if you could work remote or like, part-time, or like you could like cut a deal, you know? And like most of us don't even believe that that kind of thing is possible. What made you believe that you could ask for that?
Honestly, it's like my colleagues, the couple that I told I was going to pitch this, were kind of like, okay, this guy doesn't even like people working from home on a Friday, let alone gallivanting for a year. And friends were like, you might want to update your resume in case he's like, you're kidding me? No. I don't know. I just really felt like I had nothing to lose. Look, I wasn't coming in there with this pitch like it was all about me. I mean, it's all about what's in it for the business, right? And so I really came in with I felt was a very strong business case,
Yep.
how we could position our company as the leaders in the future of work, that this is an experiment. And maybe part of the experiment is things don't go very well. And we write about that. We write about the challenges of remote work and what's not working in remote work and what is and what the opportunities are. And I kind of made it seem like he would really be leading this future work trend. And I think I said two things that made it easy for him to say yes. One was it would cost $0 for the organization
Mm.
outside of my normal salary. And just like I'd pay for my rent in New York where I live, I'd pay for my rent wherever else. And two,
Mm.
I said, at if any point you think I'm not performing well, I will come back. And so I made it hard to say no, I think. And
Yeah.
with that, a couple months later, I took off.
That is wild. Oh my gosh. So, okay. Amazing that you got that far with it, but that's super smart. You make the case and you're like, "Hey, this is for the greater good."
Yes.
Me traveling for a year is going to ultimately be for the greater good. But ultimately, what you end up doing is finding your own way full time as a speaker and coach. And now you go into organizations and you're coaching leaders within organizations. And so, how did you make that jump? Like, how does it work from like idea to travel, then TED Talk, then your full blown business?
So while I was traveling, in addition to just doing my day-to-day job, part of my commitment was I'm also doing kind of field research on remote work. So I was interviewing remote workers in my different co-working spaces around the world, digital nomads, people I was meeting. I did surveys, focus groups, and I started fleshing out what I was writing into what I felt were like mini chapters of a potential book, which was not initially part of the plan, but I thought, wow, I could really help this niche yet growing population of remote workers. Because one thing I found is so many of them felt, while they had this freedom and flexibility to work from anywhere and felt grateful for that, a lot of them still felt stuck and unfulfilled. And being able to work from anywhere was really a band-aid solution for the real problem, which is like they really didn't like the work they were doing, but if they could do
Right,
it from the beach in Bali, like amazing. But
right,
at the end of the day, a lot of people still felt like something was missing and they wanted to have more of an impact and they wanted to grow and develop themselves and feel challenged. And they didn't just want to, have a job to pay the bills. And so that's when my HR hat kind of went on. And I was like, wait, I could bring my HR toolkit, all this research I'm doing, apply it to the world of remote workers and come up with something that could be really valuable for them.
yeah.
So I wrote the first draft of my book while traveling. I come back as planned. This is just wild because I left March 1st of 2019. I come back March 1st of 2020 and like the whole world shuts down. And
Mm.
I go to my office for like 5 business days. And before I even can share my findings, they're like, everyone work from home. There's a global pandemic. Everyone work remotely. And I was like, I just wrote a book about that. Oh my goodness. 2 months later,
Wow.
May of 2020, the company ends up doing massive layoffs. I ended up getting laid off. And I'm like, well, I have this body of research, the work the world needs. I don't have a job. I have severance pay, which is nice. And I've always dreamt of doing my own thing. Like, why not give it a shot right now? Like, let's see how it goes. And so that's when it all started.
Wow. That is so wild. And so now, are you on your second book now that you're ready to launch. Fantastic. That's such a wild like sequence of events, but
I planned
you
that.
essentially become an expert in this, and then you're able to just fully launch, and now this is what you do.
Mhm.
And now we want to talk about like how the TED Talk helped that. How did it come into play and your journey through that? So friends, we're going to jump in here. Sarah's going to take us on her journey, what she would do different, what were some things that she thinks really helped elevate it. And you can be asking questions throughout if you'd like. You can always pop in the chat there and we can get to them as we go, but we're also going to leave some time at the end if you have any more specific questions. Also, I just want to say that if you haven't seen Sarah's talk, let me show it to you real quick. We're not going to watch the whole thing, but let me show you on TED. So cool. There she is. I froze it at this spot where maybe Sarah
So
doesn't like me.
unflattering, Caesar.
But if you haven't seen this talk, does more freedom at work mean more fulfillment? Go and watch it immediately. It's so good. She did a brilliant, brilliant job with it. And I think, when I've had a few clients now that have been fully elevated to TED, and what happens is they'll do their own kind of re-editing of it, and they sometimes they change the title. They might like, rebrand it of sorts, and then they get to run their own marketing campaign with it. So it's so cool to see it happen, and obviously couldn't have happened to a better person. So again, congratulations with this,
Caesar, I
Sarah.
don't think I told you this. They edited out one thing when they made it into a TED, which
Really?
is so interesting because I say which a few companies that were becoming fully remote, and at the time Twitter was. And then before it
Oh,
was elevated to TED, Elon Musk took over. It became X, and he was like, "Everyone come back into the office." So the
wow.
time it went to TED, they took that out of my talk. Like, nope, Twitter's not an example anymore, but it was when I did my talk.
Wow. I mean, so smart. And like your experience with them actually is they're very thorough in, fact checking and all of that good stuff. And so, Sonal says she can't wait to watch it. Okay, so let's launch in because I remember working with you was so easy. Like you were like you had the idea ready to go when we met. You had your draft even, and we were kind of getting it. We were punching it up. We were getting it tighter. We rearranged some things. But when you thought about even just the idea and how to package it and put it together, tell us about your thought process there and how you were trying to align with Ted or what your yeah, just your thinking on it.
Yeah, it was always a bucket list thing to get a TED Talk. I was rejected from a lot of them. So I always like to share that because it wasn't so easy to get one, to be honest. I applied to a bunch of different ones. As some of you may know that have tried applying or have a talk, they have to curate a diverse group of people, of content. And you doesn't mean your idea is not worth spreading or interesting or relevant, but they
Right.
need a mix, of ideas and people. And oftentimes they also want people that maybe have a connection to that city in some way. Sometimes they care
Right.
less. It depends. So I got a lot of rejections, but I don't know. I was still like, I know I have a good idea here. And I always truly felt like it was a matter of when, not if, as far as like getting a talk eventually. I just had to find the right one. And so it was definitely a process. I mean, I even like ended up, getting to the last round of a couple and pitching live in front of them and sending videos. I mean, it was a lot. And so it was a
Right.
goal of mine just to make it happen. And so I'm really glad that it did. And what else? What else? What was the rest of that question?
Yeah, when you think about like maybe titling it or like how you were pitching it, like
Yeah,
what came to mind for you?
right. That's a great question. I was between two titles. And
Did Ted change it or did they keep your
oh
title?
no, they kept it.
Nice.
So the current title is Does More Freedom at Work Mean More Fulfillment? Question mark. And it's interesting. At first I thought, do I make that a statement? More freedom at work does not mean more fulfillment. would that be stronger? Would that like show that like I'm making a stance and I have a point of view? Or do I actually want to make it a question and leave it up for debate and conversation? And is that it more interesting?
Right.
Kind of went back and forth with that. And then the other title I was considering was, I think it was, Is Remote Work the Answer? Um,
Mm,
but I felt like it was more that it was about more than remote work in a way. Like we all want freedom. We want financial freedom, not just location freedom, but financial freedom and other types. So I just, I felt like, I don't know. I like the freedom and fulfillment. I like the juxtaposition of those
yeah.
words, the alliteration of the F's. So there's something about that was more interesting. Ultimately, I decided to go with a question mark versus a statement. Um, I know TED Talks titles have both, but because I wanted to invite debate and invite questions, and even though I had a point of view and I had an idea about it, I was very open to like let's talk because I think it works for some people and it doesn't work for others, and we need to talk about both
Right.
sides of it.
And why do you think, I mean, was your, because this was a topic that was, as you say, you were starting to see new research on like what the trends were.
Mhm.
I can't remember exactly, the dates of how all this fell into place, but how much of you tapping into something that was current and a conversation do you think plays into both the selection and also the elevation of it?
I do think that it for sure played in a lot to the relevance and selection because it was interesting as I was getting rejected and rejected. I'm like, oh my God, by the time I might get one, this might be old news. Like, I myself felt a sense of urgency. Like, it is so topical and important right now. Like, what if I miss the window and by the time I get something, or maybe I never get something, and they're like, no, we're not talking about that anymore. Or like, at the time, we didn't know how long the pandemic would last. We didn't know how long remote work would last. So it was hard to judge. But I do think because part of the feedback, and this was interesting, that once I finished the talk, we were told like, oh, it'll be posted. I think they had said like 8 to 10 weeks from now, it should be posted on YouTube. So I'm waiting. I'm like checking all the time that 8 to 10 week mark. And I see other people that had spoken at my event, theirs were posted. I'm
Right.
waiting another day, another two, another week. And I'm like, mine's the only one that's not up yet. And I was like, oh my God, I just gave myself worst case scenario. Oh, they thought it was bad, or that time I messed up, maybe they couldn't edit it out, or maybe it is old news right now, or Twitter's no longer remote, like whatever. Thinking of all the worst case scenarios, or they didn't think my data or my the sources were relevant enough or whatever. And so, but it was the opposite. So I get a message from the TEDx organizer that's like, hi, we just got this note from TEDx that your talk was flagged as very timely and relevant, and they actually want to find a way to promote it more so than just like the local TEDx organizer.
Right.
Oh my gosh, you take your time. I went from being so impatient to like, whatever time you need. You know? And so like it was, I think like another 4 weeks or 6 weeks or something. And then that's when they said, okay, it's going to be on the homepage of the TEDx YouTube channel as an editor's pick.
Yeah,
Kind of the first promotion of it.
that's awesome. And then did you feel like when they elevated it to TED, was there even more buzz about remote work at the time? Is that what was going on?
I don't think there was more
Yeah.
at the time. But it was about 9 months after the first promo, and I would say a year after the initial talk was recorded, I would say. I'm trying to think of that timeline. So, so then I got an email directly from TED, and this was really interesting. So they wanted to make sure that the sources and data I quoted was accurate. So for
Yeah.
all of you writing your TEDx, like ensure they're accurate. Do not, well, ChatGPT was not around when I wrote my talk, but some people are using stats and data like that. They make stuff up. Like
Yeah.
those are not always real sources. So check your sources because if they were not accurate or relevant, then that would not have been promoted to a TED. So I saved like the links or whatever. And they can be like digital links to a McKinsey article or a news article or whatever. So I made sure I like, had my list. And so that when they asked for them, I was like, boom, boom, boom.
Yeah.
And I think the other thing that really helped was during that year from the time I recorded, I started to really focus on sharing my thought leadership on LinkedIn, in news
News
articles,
article.
getting like quoted by other news outlets. And so I started to create more of like a digital footprint that positioned me as an expert in the remote work at the time. And so I think that really helped
Yeah.
because because they even, I thought they would just watch the talk, make sure the sources were good. I was a real person, whatever. But they were like, oh, we read this Forbes article that you were quoted in, and you say this here, but in your talk, you say that. So can you just verify? And I was like, oh, I'm happy to explain like what they might have seen as a discrepancy, which wasn't. And they're like, okay, we got it, you know? But so they did their homework and really looked at like, where else is Sarah out there? What else is she doing? What are people saying about her? So again, I think that also helps for any of
Yeah.
you that are, putting your thoughts out there, your ideas out there. Like the more you do, the better. It's just going to make you look like more credible and be considered as like, I think when they put people on the TED platform, they really want to make sure that everything is like aligned in the back end.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. I think that's something that I noticed as well. You make some great points. So some takeaways, folks, that I think are super key when Sarah and I were working on the talk, we we talked about annotating the script and to have that and to hold it because they could ask for that information. And so while you're creating your talk, if you're citing research, just make sure that you're keeping that and having it in case they ask for that those links, etc. And that's not uncommon for them to ask it whether the talk is elevated or not. The other thing that Sarah did really well is that it wasn't just about citing research. She positioned herself as the expert who could interpret it and synthesize it and apply it. So it's not just like, hey, here's a point and this research supports my point. It was more like, here's this research. What does that mean?
Yeah.
What does that mean for us? And I think that's really a way in which you can start to think about the next level of thought leadership is how are you interpreting that and applying it and saying, here's how we can use it and take that away. And the same thing is true when you're, sharing your thought leadership on LinkedIn or beyond or your Forbes article or whatever. You're essentially positioning yourself as an expert, and Sarah has done that extremely well.
Thank you.
Anything you'd add to that, Sarah?
Yeah, because if you think about it, like some of you may choose to have slides for your TEDx. I did not. And you know your data, you know your research, you've practiced it in your head, it makes sense. But for some people, if you're throwing out numbers and data and percentages, they might get a little lost if there's no visual to accompany it. And so I was really fortunate. Like I practiced for a couple of different friends and close family members. And they're like, wait, do you have a slide? I'm not catching what that number looks like. And I'm like, oh, that's really interesting because it's obvious to me, like it's clear. And one of them was like, what are you really trying to say when you quote that data? And I said, what I'm trying to say is that what people are saying and what they're doing is inconsistent when it came
Mm,
to like employment and resignations and stuff. And I was like, and she's like, say that. Just say that. Say the data. You can quote the data, but then say what people are saying, what they're doing is inconsistent. And I was like, oh, yeah. Like, so I would just recommend, like, as Caesar said, like, what is your interpretation of the data? What does it mean in layman's terms? And especially if someone is not looking at a visual, is it easy for them to digest the data in their heads?
mhm. Yeah, very good. Okay, quickly, we'll take a question here and then we'll jump back in. So, Kalia is asking, well, first she says we're dropping gems. Well, thank you. I'm glad you're enjoying it, Kalia. Question for Sarah: how did you submit to TED your own research? Did they reach out to the remote workers you interviewed, or was just submitting the white paper or data sufficient?
So I didn't quote quantitative research of my own in my TEDx. I ended up using more qualitative, like my own um, data I used in my TEDx that I had done was more qualitative, was more like, here are the three core drivers of fulfillment of remote workers. And I introduced like three in a framework, but it wasn't more numbers driven. The numbers were more from sources like a McKinsey article, like a news
Right.
article. And so those are the ones that I ended up sharing with them. So
Yeah.
hope that answers the question.
I think that's great. And what I would add to that is that in general, unless you were part of research that was then published and peer reviewed, that I wouldn't be using it in the talk in a way that is anything but anecdotal
Yeah.
or experiential, right? And because the gold standard that they're going to be looking for, especially in, do we elevate this talk, et cetera, will be the peer-reviewed published
Exactly.
research.
Yeah, great point.
Okay, fantastic. So, all right. So we get your talk ready. Obviously, you do a great job with it. Is there anything that you would do differently in terms of like preparation for the talk or just the content itself now that you've had some time to even with all the success, right? Like you
Yeah.
basic like you got to it's a TED Talk. What else what would you do differently with the talk?
So I spent like a lot of time perfecting every single word, right? I wanted every sentence, every word to matter. I think they told me in this case it had to be under 12 minutes. So every one might be slightly different. So every sentence really does matter. And I was told, like, definitely don't keep changing things late in the game. Like, you want to lock it in, whatever. I felt like I did that with 2 weeks to spare, which was not enough time. So, all of you, like, lock it in a good month before, like, no changing of words or whatever. I don't know how everyone works, if they memorize it line by line, if they know in general what they're going to say. But because I'm a speaker, this is what I do. I felt maybe too comfortable, I think. So imagine like I do a 60-minute talk normally. I do a keynote talk. I have my slides, I have my points, I have my stories, I have my data. If I don't make the point here, I'll make it there. If the word's slightly off, no big deal. Like I have an hour to like bring it all together, right? But a TED Talk is very different. And so I really was like, I'm going to memorize every single line, every word. And that was like really hard for me. So the best way I can explain it is like, okay, some of you might be runners or you play tennis or you swim and you might be in like really good shape. And then you like walk up a flight of stairs and you're puffing and puffing and you're like, what's the deal? I was in good shape, right? Like, why is this? So it's something I researched because it's called the specificity of training, that our body gets accustomed to like a specific type of like use of a muscle endurance group. Like it's like the comparing a sprinter to a marathon runner, two totally different things and types of training.
Right,
And so I felt like I knew how to train for like a long keynote talk, but not for a short TEDx.
right.
And so I would practice a TEDx and I would forget the line and I would like get all flustered. And because I wanted to say it word for word, I was even more upset. And like maybe I would have been totally fine if I hadn't tried to say it word for word, but that's what I was going for. And I would do it for friends. I'd be like, oh, I forgot this part. Like, oh, let me go back, and I would get like very frustrated. One tool I used that was helpful, it was, I think it's an app that actors use to like memorize monologues. So it's
Yeah,
kind of fun. I don't know if you've seen this, Caesar. You like upload your whole talk
script, yeah.
and then it will give you different, like it's like gamifies the memorization. And so what it will do is it will first remove the first word of every paragraph. And you have to, kind of as you read, guess what it is. And then it will remove every four words. And you kind of have to guess
Ah.
what it is.
What's the name of the app?
Oh, I know. I'm gonna find it, Shirley, or I'm sure you can look. I was like something like act. Oh shoot, this was 4 years ago. It was like actors,
Yeah, we can find it.
actor memorization. Put like actor memorization apps, you'll find it. And and then it
That's
would
cool.
remove every other, then the first sentence, and like it would like challenge you to like know it that way. So I would do that. I would like look at it and then I recorded myself saying my speech and then I would just take walks around the neighborhood and I would just listen to it. So I tried a lot of different things. I think nothing really beats saying it in front of an audience. So it could be your dog, honestly. It could be your friend, your partner, whoever it is, saying it out loud in front of people. But don't worry about your mannerisms too much. Don't, get too focused on that, but the
Yeah.
content is more important.
Yeah, this is a conversation that, I have a lot, obviously, about when it's short form and you have to turn in a script and it's filmed, you do essentially have to own it, right? It doesn't mean that you have to hit the script verbatim, but it needs to be beyond memorized. And so then the game becomes, how do I memorize best? And then move beyond it so that I can be present while I'm delivering it and engaging,
Totally.
right?
Yeah.
Authentic, all of those things.
Yeah.
Because no, you're exactly right. Most of us are never preparing this way, unless we're an actor,
Yeah.
and we don't want to appear as though we're trying to be an actor because that would not present well. So this is a great tool. I actually haven't heard of this. There's a lot of different memorization tools, obviously, but your delivery will, of course, be a huge part of whether the talk resonates. And so, all of that being said, Sarah, I think at the end of the day, you did a great job. Like your delivery is fantastic. I want to get into now thinking about our like post talk and what you did to continue to promote it and use it for your speaking and your business. Before that, I just want to jump over to these questions real quick. So Yolanda is asking, for those of us who have a book, how would you recommend reaching out cold turkey to journals or magazines to get positioned as an expert?
Yeah. So I don't think it was actually, I mean, yes, the book helped with some credibility, but what more it's about is um, figuring out like who writes about the topics that you're an expert in. Like who are those journalists? Who are those writers? Following them on Instagram and LinkedIn, like seeing what they're writing about, what they're up to. And then oftentimes they do post like, hey, writing an article about XYZ topic, looking for experts, whatever. And then you can hop in and say something. So that's one option. Another is like commenting on their an article they write and then like furthering the conversation or furthering the idea or furthering the point in some way that is maybe like they hadn't thought about or takes it to the next step and then like starting to like position yourself as an expert in their eyes like and then you could even reach out and say like, hey, I read your article and so, like I've had a similar experience or I've had a slightly different experience, or here's what I feel about that topic. So starting to like build those relationships and stuff like that is, I think, the best way to do that. And you think like they're doing you a favor, but you're doing them a favor too, because they're often
Mhm.
writing articles and they want to cite experts and they don't know how to find the experts. So you
Yeah.
you be right there when they need one, and then like, and that's what happened. Like I got like one, I think it was in a BBC. I've just followed a journalist that wrote a lot about like corporate, leadership and stuff like that. And I just followed her, and she's like looking for someone who's had this unique experience. I'm like, me, I have, and here's my take. And she was like, oh, so be that
Yeah.
person for them because they are looking.
Perfect. Love it. All right, friends. So if you have a TEDx or yours is coming out and you want to know how to make it travel, whether you get selected as an editor's pick or elevated to TED, I want you to know that there are things that are in your control. And ultimately, you still have to be the driver of this talk, sharing it, using it for the purposes that you want to use it for. I have clients that have a few thousand views and they've been able to parlay that into life-changing career advancement because they showed it and give it to the right people. And then there are some folks that have millions and they've never utilized it for much. And it's cool to have and it's credibility and that's great. So you really have to decide what do you want to use it for? What are the goals? and so on. And so what I would say is, I'll give you an example. I have a friend, Andrew Tarvin, who has this TEDx talk, The Skill of Humor, which has over 16 million views on it. Was never a TEDx editor's pick, was not elevated to TED, right? Those are things that are out of our control. But he did really great at sharing it and using it for his goals as a speaker. And his goals are to create a movement where we actually use humor in the workplace effectively. And he's been able to do that and has a lot of cool things and tips and tricks that he gives on his own. But some of it's luck. And I just want to put that out there that sometimes somebody shares it with their community and it goes viral for no reason that we didn't do anything to make that happen, right? But we're not going to rely on luck. So let's talk about a few things that you can do. Uh, the first thing that you could take advantage of is continuing to leverage the TED platform itself. So everyone who has a TEDx talk can go to TED Ed and create a lesson, like a something that takes it further than just the talk itself. Like you're basically teaching something. It's meant for like a classroom setting, but anyone can create it and then share it with their audience. And so that's another way in which you can say, like, hey, after my TEDx talk, I also have this lesson that you can access on the TED platform, and here's the link. Sarah did that. Can you tell us a little bit about your experience with that, Sarah?
I was a little late to the game for that.
That's all right.
Funny because you had told me about it early on, and I was like, I don't know what it is, and I couldn't figure it out. And then, but it eventually did. It's really cool. It's like you basically create like a mini online course for your TEDx, and
Mhm.
you can ask 3 questions to or more to whoever you send the link to. So they get a link and it goes to a page and it shows your talk and then it asks them questions and then like people can answer the questions in there. You can comment on it. So you can create
Yeah.
conversation around your talk, which is really cool. So actually should have done that earlier on. Not, never too late, but that's not promoted in the same way a TEDx is promoted. It's more like you have to tell people that link
Yes.
exists. So you are responsible for the promotion, but it's very cool. It's a very cool option.
It is, and it's a great way to, I mean, at the end of the day, like we're responsible for promoting everything, right? But so much of like our own so much of marketing tools are are not selection based. They're about credibility that you create. And
Yeah.
this is another way that you create credibility because it's on the platform. And if that lesson is good, then you've just added a ton of value, right? And ultimately, that's what you want to be showing and giving to people. And so, everyone who has a TEDx, I recommend that you create that educational piece, share it with your audience, and then they can engage in conversation. And it's another way that they can share you and your work.
Yeah.
Sarah, what else comes to mind that you did to leverage it and to build what you have today, which is, being a full-time speaker and coach and being awesome?
It's sometimes almost hard to know like how the TEDx helps or not. Like, I've had some, look, there's no silver bullet. Like, I just want to say that. Like, I thought like, oh my gosh, my talk's gonna be on TED. They're gonna be knocking down my door. I'm gonna be so busy with speaking. And then I'm like, where is everybody? So like it's a great credibility builder, but it's not like, so I don't want anyone here to be upset like I only got like 500 views like or 1,000, like that might be enough for what you need it for, because more than that um it's also an example, a professionally captured example of you speaking and you
Right.
sharing an idea and your thought leadership. So even if it doesn't get a lot of public views, if you are a speaker or any whatever else you do, you're a coach and you want, it's a marketing tool to share with people to say like, here's a video of me speaking professionally. Like we have the credibility of the TEDx, but more than that, it's like here's what I believe to be true, and here are
Exactly.
ideas that I have, and here's how I can help people and potentially you, whatever so use it in all your marketing, like, not even if you're not a speaker, it's a great tool to use that. And before I had professional videos of me speaking or a speaker reel, like all I had was my TEDx.
Exactly.
So I just was like, this is what I got, and that was great.
And it worked for that purpose.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. And so that's one thing I want to say. What else? I mean, I just shared it everywhere I could. Obviously, in your signature of your email. It was like on my Instagram, on my LinkedIn, like it was, yeah, it was I kind of put it everywhere. And I also shared a lot of my journey because people want to come along with you on it. So I wrote a couple blog posts about getting rejected and then working out and what happened next and then getting that text that I thought was like they were gonna like just can the whole thing and then it ended up being promoted, so like take people on the journey with you. Like for most people, this is like incredible, like
Yeah.
anytime I tell someone I'm a speaker or what I do, they're like, you should do a TED. You should do a TED talk. I'm like, well, actually, I have. Like if for most people, it's like something they've been watching for a long time, but they've never thought about doing themselves. So like, even though of course there's like many more TEDx's out there now than there were 10, 15, 20 years ago, for most people, it's still incredible that you're doing one or you've done one.
Yeah.
So like, don't take that for granted, even if it doesn't have a lot of views.
And it is something more and more that event organizers ask about and ask for. One of the reasons is they know the form and they like the form, right? And it's fun to watch and it's short. Speaker reels can sometimes feel more salesy, right? And you need a speaker reel, don't get me wrong. But what I'm saying is if you just have your TEDx, that will do for as you start out and as you keep building all of your assets. I
Actually,
also think, oh, go ahead, Sarah.
no, sorry, I was just gonna say, I think things have changed where like when I only had the TEDx, I kept thinking, oh, it's not enough. I need the speaker. I need a speaker. I finally got the speaker reel and people loved it. It was great. And then now it's coming back to like, well, we want to see you tell a complete story and a
Yep,
complete thought and a complete idea, not like jumping from 15 seconds on this stage to 5 seconds on that, which is what the speaker reel kind of jumps around.
that's right.
So having a consistent 10, 15-minute um, clip of you speaking and sharing a full story and a full idea is very valuable.
That that's so true, and something that's happening in the industry right now is that there's a lot of manufactured speaker reels in the sense that the audience is just planted, right? And having that, there's a company called Outspeak, which is amazing. And they create some of the best speaker reels there is. And they put you on a stage and this big LED screen and all of that. But if you go and you look at the speaker reels, the best ones are the ones that are supplemented with the B-roll of them really speaking and doing it. And then the narrative thread is that big stage. So it always matters how much content and how you story tell and all of that. But that's all to say that many people are asking for the full keynote. Can you send me the hour?
Yeah.
And because I think that speaks to maybe them getting burned by a good speaker reel, but not a great speaker. And so remember to record it all. Remember that sometimes the gritty, organic stage that you feel doesn't look amazing is exactly the thing that's going to connect with somebody, which is why the most important part of your TEDx is whether the talk is good, is whether people resonate with it, it's whether they want to share it. That's when it's going to work for your business. So, Sarah, to close here, and folks, go ahead and start dropping in any other questions that we didn't get to. I know there's one there pending as well. But just kind of to wrap, Sarah, like what's your kind of like takeaway? Like, here's what you should do, here's what you should focus on, here's what's going to give you the best shot, and not just creating a great TED, but also creating a great speaking career, coaching business.
Yeah. I think it's like you said, Caesar, it's like how good is the talk, And people are talking in the chat about location and production quality. And honestly, like I have to say, it does matter. Um, Audio more than video matters because they can hear it. It's better. And every TEDx has different level of production value, production quality. So um, the better you can find, that's great. I spoke to someone who wanted to like re-record hers because like you could barely hear it when she saw the video, and that's such a shame. Like you put so much hard work into it, you don't want that to happen. But
Yeah.
at the end of the day, like like your idea has to be good, what you back it up with. I think the combination of quantitative and qualitative examples is helpful. I think something, Caesar, you helped me do is really um, bring my own personal story into it and start with it and also end with it. So it feels more personal. Like I'm not talking about these other people, these other remote workers out there, like bringing myself into it, I think makes it more personal and more relatable. I'm not excluding myself from feeling or being challenged by the things I'm talking about. And I think for me, that was always a challenge because it's almost like I thought I had to have it figured out in order to like tell people what to do.
Mm,
Um, and maybe you only have to have it like 5% more figured out, not 100% in order to share what like in order to help the person like you once were, you're kind of like maybe one step ahead, but you don't have to be 20 steps ahead. And I also think like, yes, you need to understand like, why am I doing this talk? What's the purpose of it? What's my idea worth spreading? However, through the process of writing your talk, you will also clarify what your idea is and what your thought leadership is.
yes.
So, like, through the writing of it, through the practicing of it, you're like, is this what I'm trying to say? Is this what I believe?
Right.
Like, so I sometimes it's hard to have it figured out before you start writing it clearly. You might have like a vague idea, but through the process of talking about it and writing it, and that's why I encourage you where you can do any type of PR or get quoted. It's not just to get the credibility, because when someone asks you what you think about something, you take the time to really like gather your thoughts into like punchy sentences that
Yeah.
really hit home and make an impact. And so that's what writing this talk is going to help you do too. It's going to, through the writing of it, help you really clarify what your idea is and what your thinking is. And obviously, working with Caesar will help you do that.
Thanks, Sarah. That's awesome. There's a few questions that we'll get to now. So Andy says, "Do you think it matters which TEDx like location you're speaking at?" So I'll start, and then you can kind of give your thoughts on it, Sarah. But yeah, I get this question a lot. Obviously, the first thing to note is that they all go up on the same platform, right? So TEDx has their YouTube channel. They are all posted there. The quality of your talk is really the primary driver. When you think of like Simon Sinek's talk that was the video's kind of grainy, the audio cut out. There's maybe 50 people in the audience. That is an average TEDx event. There's probably more little things that might go wrong that might go right. And that's the organic nature of a volunteer event. So just good to know that. But there are some where it's like, no, the production, I can't hear it or I can't see it well. And obviously, those are things then where if it's not going to be able to be received by your audience, then you don't want to engage. Um, Not every event, like if you go and you look at their previous videos. It doesn't necessarily mean that that's what their next event is going to look like because there's a lot of turnover. Sometimes they use a new venue, sometimes a new production team. So you don't necessarily have to, just say, no, I'm not doing that, but you should ask the right questions. Most actually, TEDx events are run one time because of how much work is involved. So you're likely to run into an event where it's their first event. And then you also just need to ask the right questions and see if you're comfortable. All of this in mind that most of these organizers are doing it for the love of TED and or a way to just kind of like bring the community together or sometimes promote their own stuff. And so just know that you're a part of making that event good, and you can ask and you can volunteer yourself and you can give resources. So you might know a great editor. You might know a great production team. You might be able to support and help. Sarah, what would you add to that?
think you hit it. Yeah, and nothing else to add. That's right.
I mean, Sarah's, it's funny because your event was was actually a studio event, and there was a really small audience, and they were sort of saying like, "Hey, it's studio, so you could just talk right to the camera if you want to." And you were like, "No, I'm gonna do this like there's an
I'm gonna do it
audience."
my own way.
Yeah. And
No,
there
but
was an audience, but it was
yeah, I
just
think for
small.
those of you who don't know, like I think studio events were created during the pandemic, maybe when they couldn't have
Yep.
live audiences.
Yep.
So this was kind of towards the tail end of that. And I was so bummed I wasn't gonna have a live audience. And I was, oh, come on. Like that's the whole fun of it. And then when I really thought about it, I was like, okay, but the audience is like a one-time thing. That's about me and the experience I want to have. But the video is what lasts forever. That's what gets put online. That's what gets to impact, millions of people. And so I was like, okay, that's fine. But they did ask me to like, they said you can speak to the camera, and I was like, no, I'm gonna speak and pretend there's an audience. That's my little secret when you watch it. That yeah, I just wanted to, yeah, not look at the camera.
Yeah.
That
For
was
sure. And I'm just reading the comments and Kathy did hers at TEDx Jacksonville and they are amazing. They've got a lot of events under their belt. We've had a bunch of clients deliver there. If you haven't seen Kathy's talk, get to that one. And um, let's see, another question that popped up here. Oh, Ali wants to know if you tried promoting the talk like Google Ads or doing anything supplementary to get more eyes on
I never did, but I don't know. Yeah, that would maybe be a great idea. Never, no, I never looked into it, I must say.
it. Um, Yeah, I think what I would add to this is that that space is saturated with some unsavory kind of stuff. And what they've done is they've created a business every time a TEDx goes live, then you're gonna have like five messages from people going like, we can get you a bunch of views and organic and yada yada.
Oh,
Unfortunately, a lot of them are doing either bots or they're doing something where they trick people into clicking stuff. And that's how they're generating the views, which YouTube will know that's what's happening, and then they'll actually suppress your content. So then it won't grow after that, is the penalty or the consequence. And then depending on who you use, they manufacture comments and stuff, and then it just doesn't look good. It's not real.
yeah, I
But
saw someone with like this was shady. It was like 1 million views, but there was like 5 comments, and I'm like, that doesn't line up. I don't know,
yeah,
something shady happened there. You know what I mean?
right.
Like, could have that many people,
Yeah,
and then like that's weird.
right. So if you're gonna go down that route, which we have someone who we use who's amazing and knows Google Ads, and it's all legit. Now it's harder to do it that way, and there's an investment, of course, but it's real. And so just do your homework, ask the right questions, and just know there's some characters out there that are not telling you the full story. Um, there's a guy from Ireland that I would stay away from. Okay. Um, Lindsay says, are all successful talks including quantitative research? So I would say no, not necessarily because not all talks, there's some talks that are really just like experiential and like this happened to me and here's what I think and here's my idea. So some don't include any research at all. And sometimes people are forcing research into a talk that doesn't need to be there. Or they're giving us research where it doesn't feel like it aligns with their expertise. And
Mm.
so that's something else that you want to be cautious of is it's okay to be the reporter and to say, here's what I learned. But I would be cautious trying to, or not, maybe not trying, or maybe mistakenly aligning yourself with expertise or credibility that you don't have. and that just won't resonate with the audience. So just know where you line up in that. Know that you don't have to use research if it's not something that naturally comes up.
Mhm.
And if you use it, that gold standard is really about that kind of peer-reviewed, published research. Sarah, what would you add to that?
No, I think that's spot on.
All right, my friends, we have come to time. I love this community so much. You all are engaged, you're in it. If there's more questions, if you want to connect with Sarah, Sarah, how can people reach you?
Yeah, you can connect with me on LinkedIn, Sarah Aviram. Also, I have a new book coming out that's inspired by this TED Talk. Well, it inspired the TED Talk, TED Talk inspired it. Things go back and forth. It's called The Scenic Route. So it's all the juicy stories behind my year living in 12 countries in 12 months. So it comes out August 18th, but you can pre-order now at thescenicroutebook.com or just look for The Scenic Route by Sarah Aviram anywhere you buy books.
I love it. Connect with Sarah on LinkedIn too, everybody. She's brilliant. She's always sharing amazing stuff. And one more round of applause for Sarah, everybody.
Thank you. Thanks,
Oh
Caesar, for
my.
your help, and good luck to everyone on your TEDx journey.
Let's do it. Woo! Here we go. Here comes the sprinkler. Are you ready?
Ready? Yay. That was really my
Love you guys. Have a good one.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.